I'll start us off. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Golang Live webinar series. This episode is titled Time Formatting in Go. For those who don't know me, who have not joined before, but my name is Jake O'Regan, and I am a Golang specialist recruiter and have been for a number of years now. And I work for a company called Amicus Recruitment in the UK. I am delighted to be joined by my friend and Golang expert Ayan George from where he's coming from now. So he'll be leading today's webinar. You're from Square. I do apologise, there's a slight slip of the tongue. But yeah, just wanted to make sure everyone knows we want to keep this as interactive as possible today. So please use the Q&A options below throughout. I've got Ayan's permission to interrupt him as many times as we want, so we'll take full advantage of that, guys. So yeah, please type a question out. I'll interrupt and ask away. But yeah, it should last around 30 to 45 minutes or so in total. So yeah, without further ado, over to you, Ayan.
Hey, yeah. So thanks a lot, Jake. My name is Ayan George. Like Jake mentioned, I currently work at Square. I've been using Go for a little while. It's kind of funny. I was going through some backups the other day, and I found my very first Go program, and I hated it initially. I was this longtime C programmer, and the first thing I did was I created a make file and all this stuff, and I was like, this doesn't work. This doesn't meet my expectations. It kind of defies everything that I'm kind of used to. And I put it down for a while, and then as years went on, I kind of came back to it. And eventually I fell in love with it, and I kind of took it on as my kind of main or language of choice. Let's see. So today, actually, speaking of times when Go sort of defies your expectations, today I'm going to talk about time formatting in Go. I'm going to share my screen, and let's see. So can you see my slide deck? Awesome. Okay. So I've already done the introductions, but of course, in this case, I encourage you guys to interrupt, ask questions. I actually ask questions. It's kind of like a quiz. There's a small quiz, and we go through a little bit of exercise. And I really depend on kind of feedback during this presentation. So please, send questions, insults, corrections. And that's another big thing is that one of the reasons I do these kind of talks, it isn't because I feel like I know everything there is to know about Go. It is because in preparing for these kind of talks, I always learn something about Go. And of course, trying to distill this type of information and present it helps kind of solidify that knowledge in my head. So again, I'm not pontificating. And so if anybody has any corrections or anything like that, please feel free to chime in. So without further ado, what I'm going to talk about is Go time formatting in Go. So if everyone's familiar with the time type, and then you probably also run into the time format method. And what it does is it takes a string that's called essentially a reference time that has elements, or that you build using elements that sort of look like the time that you want to format as a string. And when I first encountered it, I had a lot of kind of difficulty with it. Coming from C, I was very much used to strict time, and it felt awkward. I never felt sure that I was doing the right thing when I was using it, and I had a lot of trouble with it. And so likewise, a lot of people, or in my experience, I've noticed quite a few people have a similar issue. For example, there's there's a long blog post about Go quirks, and he kind of reserves a section for the date formatting API. Anyways, I find it unnecessarily painful. It's extremely confusing. It breaks for no good reason from the strict time standard format, which has been in use for half a century. This is a long Reddit thread about it. Yet another blog. In addition to other things, the last blog on this page complains about the fact that formatting seems to defy people outside the US's expectations for formatting. And so, there's even this slightly off-color one. I'd love to click on the link, but it's effing godateformat.com, and I actually had to dig it up from the archive.org. Is it okay if I click on the link? I'd just like to show everyone what it's all about. Okay, so someone was so frustrated by Go's time formatting sort of mechanisms that, oh, what just happened? Oh, there we go. That they built a website that converts strict time verbs to Go formatting verbs. And I just noticed today, I didn't bother to like scroll down. Like I just saw this and I was like, ah, fine, I'll just get the link. But then I scrolled down, and of course he admitted, having used strict time for many other languages, Shell, Ruby, Python, C, Go's date formatting was frustratingly different. Frustratingly so because I'm too lazy to learn the new date format, right? So at least he confesses that. So anyway, so my takeaways are that there's quite a bit of developer pain when it comes to Go's time formatting techniques. Developers sometimes confused by Go's time formatting or time formatting format. I'll have to edit this slide one day. Developers sometimes wish strict time was available. In fact, there's yet another Reddit thread where somebody actually re-implemented strict time. Like he's like, oh, I'm just going to write my own like strict time and use it in Go. And also non-US developers feel alienated. But ultimately, these developers haven't realized how simple and intuitive the time format is compared with strict time, right? So let's delve into strict time just briefly. So strict time is a C function that's usually built into libc. I don't remember right now if it's part of like standard library. I actually think it is. And what it does is it takes this struct, it's called struct TM, which has members that represent different parts of time, like seconds, minutes, hours, etc., as you see on screen. And you supply a string that allows you to format portions of, obviously you supply verbs that begin with like a percent sign that allow you to format portions of this struct as a string, right? And these are the type of verbs you have, right? It's like percent lowercase a, percent uppercase a. So actually right now, what I'd like is for everybody to remember, memorize these before I get to the next slide, because we're gonna have like a little quiz in a second, right? Okay, so here we go. What I'd like to do is format today's date using strict time, right? And so speaking of developer pain, I'm a longtime C programmer, and in my experience, I have never been able to use strict time except for like very trivial things without referring to the man page. So when I use strict time, the first thing I would do is say, what's that? Is that big enough, Jake?
Yeah, it's cool. That's big enough, yeah.
So I'd have to go like man strict time, and I look through and go, okay, well I need like the month. But the thing is, it's definitely like not very intuitive. Like I never remember whether that like lowercase m is a minute or the month, or is it uppercase m. I never remember that. Fortunately, the date command allows us to play with strict time from the command line. And if I just want to know what the time is, I usually just go to like date percent %r, right? Or plus percent %r. Let's go, okay, it's 12. So just FYI, if anybody didn't know this, you could say date plus and then supply a string, and that essentially passes the current time to strict time. You could format it. So what I'd like is if anybody in the chat or anybody viewing can tell me what strict time primitives or what strict time verbs I would have to use to give me Thursday, November 11th, 2022, formatted just this way. Okay,
let's see what we get.
I feel like the chat's just scrolling with answers right now, right? Everybody knows, right?
Come on, guys.
Also, this is kind of a trick question, right? Obviously, it's actually tricky. I always have to use a man page. I happen to have it in my notes that it's plus percent %a, percent %b, comma, percent %e, percent uppercase y, right? Oh, it's November 11th. I have to edit that slide again too. It's actually too late. I tried to tailor it to the current day. I totally messed that up. So today is the 17th. I'm finally realizing, and so that is the strict time kind of pattern that we'd have to use to format the date in that way. And so as you can tell, it's not something that's easy to memorize unless you're just an amazing memory. And as time went on, and as I used Go, what I learned is that Go's time formatting reference times and the elements that they're composed of actually allow you to format time in almost any way you want without ever having to look up the manual. And you, unlike strict time, you can actually sort of build an intuition about how time format works without ever having, maybe look at the manual like once or twice, but after that, you should be able to do it without even thinking about it or without even having to refer to it, to documentation. So there's like a slightly funny bit that I just added, which is that in preparation for this talk a couple of talks ago, I asked on the Golang Nuts mailing list, like, what is the origin of Go's time formatting? Because I've been talking about it a lot, but I never really understood where it came from. So I asked, and Rob Pike himself responded, and it's a beautiful response. It's like, I believe it's unique. I thought of it one day while walking home, which is the most seems like the most simple sort of like Rob Pike answer possible, right? And I was like, oh, that is beautiful. And he mentioned a couple picture clauses, and I immediately went and like looked it up. And I can kind of see the relationship to it, but I feel like the first two sentences are like the kind of the essence of this, which is he thought of it while walking one day while walking home. But then immediately, like somebody responded to Rob Pike himself with this screed. It's like, I have to disagree. It's the most egregious design flaw of the standard library. It's the second worst design flaw of the language. Holy cow. So this guy, for every single programmer who's used other C-like languages knows %y, %m. No, that's not true. I mean, we know they exist, but we don't remember them, right? And I think, and so in some ways, this is like a perfect example of how frustrated people get with strict time. I mean, with Go's time formatting. And this guy's clearly missing out on I hope he's here. I hope he's here.
If not, you might watch this on YouTube.
Hopefully, yeah. What's his name? I'm gonna call him out. What's his name? Marvin. I don't even want to try it. Marvin, this is for you, okay? So another thing about strict time is that because it's part of the C standard library, it kind of has propagated to other languages that were written in C, because like languages like Tickle, like you said, this guy says Marvin's actually helping out. What do you say? Like, oh, he didn't listen to me, but like Ruby, Tickle, Perl, a lot of languages that are written in C just sort of use strict time, and so of course they kind of inherit strict time's formatting mechanisms, and so in that way it's sort of like proliferated. Let me get rid of this because it's a little bit rude. All right, so let's talk about building an intuition for formatting time in Go. And this is where I just immediately dive into a little bit of live coding. What I always like to do is build like little REPL for this. So what we'll do is make a little module. Main C. So what we'll do is, let's see, func main. What we want is a scanner. We'll say that's a buff.io new scanner, and we're going to read from standard in. So OS standard in. And then for scan, let's, we need current time, right? So part of the API is like time now, right? That gives us a current time. I could say now equals time now. So now what I want to do is read input from the scanner and then pass it to now's format function, right? So now I guess I'll simply, oh, actually, that won't work. So I need to scan. So if scan, sorry. Otherwise, let's log printf prompt. I'm sorry, log printf now format and text. And then before that, we'll print a little prompt. So we'll just say that's probably not going to compile. So my development environment isn't set up. Sorry. All right. Let's see how that works. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do these imports manually. Sorry. This is kind of a fresh install, so.
I'll just use this time just to remind everyone, please, if you do have any questions, feel free to jump in the chat or jump in the Q&A section. We'll be asking Ayan as we go along.
All right, here we go. So it's compiling, should run. Okay. Before we scan, we want to print the. There we go. Okay. So now that we have a REPL that we could use to kind of play with time formatting, before we start, let's look at the doc for time. So first, we have time. And of course, there's quite a few methods associated with time. But the one we're going to focus on is format. So let's look at the manual for time format. So what it does is it returns a textual representation of the time value formatted according to the layout defined by the argument. And so also recently there's a const block with some sort of predefined formats, and one was recently added. I think it's like Go 1.18 called time layout, and that one's more of like an informational one. But what we're going to see is the entire const block. So, but the top one again is going to be time layout. So this is it, and this has most of the time formatting things we'll use today. But I wonder if anyone notices anything interesting about this layout.
Come on, guys.
Bueller, anyone? No?
I wish I could.
You don't see anything interesting about it? You don't see anything like any patterns there? Any? Give you like 5 more seconds. Maybe somebody in the chat will pipe up.
Anybody?
All right, check this out. 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, right? So one, or the first thing, will always represent the month. And of course, people in Europe, I'm sorry about that. 2 will always represent the day. 3, the hour. 4, the minute. 5, the second. 6 will be the year. And 7 will be the time zone. And just from that, we could intuit the rest, right? So let's run our REPL. So let's see. Let's start with just typing in that reference time, right? So 01, 02, 03, oops, 03, 04, 05, 06. Let's say 07. And so what we see is that we get, I'm sorry. So what I'm doing wrong here is I'm using log to print this, and it's printing another date, and that's confusing. So let me change the program real quick. Right, actually, I'll just use funct printf log, right? And add a line. See that again. All right, so 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, dash 700. And of course, we get November 17th. Right now, it's 12:19 where I am in Florida, 58 seconds. It's the 22nd. I'm sorry, it's 2022, and I am offset from GMT minus 5 hours, right? So already, like even when I'm using time format and I'm like as I'm coding, sometimes I might just like do a comment and just say like 01, 02, 03, 04 if I kind of feel like a little bit like if I kind of lose track of what each element represents. But here's the cool thing is that time format can also generate or output the names of like months and days, etc. For example, for the month, if the numeric element for the month is 1, can anybody guess what word I could use to print the current month? Like if I want the current month's name as a string, if the number I use is 1, what word would I use?
I think we're having a bit of an issue with the chat. A couple of the guys are saying that it's disabled.
Sorry.
One has said A.
A. He's wrong. Can you boot him from the chat for being wrong? Can we do that? I'm just kidding. Is it working?
I think if the chat is disabled, guys, can we use the question and answer section, because that seems to be working. Apologies for it being a bit awkward.
Oh, somebody has their hand raised.
There we go. Jan? We have an answer of Jan.
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah, anonymous attendee. Yeah, so you could say Jan, and what we get is the abbreviated month, and of course January will give us the full month name. Wow, isn't that awesome? So I pulled up the chat, so I'll see if I can.
Cool.
Okay, let's see, disable for me as well. Okay, I'm gonna keep my eye on the chat. So exactly. So if 2 represents a day, and this might be another thing that might be sort of a little bit US centric, maybe not, I'm not sure, and this is our test. If 2 represents the day, what word can I type in to print out the name of the day? Like what do we typically consider like the second day of the week? That's kind of a hint. If you look at a calendar, what day is on the left, and then what's the next day? I'll bail you out.
Monday,
yes, right? So I can type Mon. And so already, without having to look at the manual, I have intuited what those 2 things are, right? Here's another one. So this one's tricky, right? So okay, so this one's a little bit tricky because another thing we could do is format the time in 24-hour format, right? But right now I only have like 12, 19, and so it already takes up 2 digits. So let's do something like add. Let's see. Now add. So yeah, let's just add 1 hour. So 1 times time hour. We'll push it to just in case. We're going to look a little bit into the future now, so that now when I type in the hour, I type 03, I get 02, right? And so now it's ambiguous. I don't know if we're talking about like, so if I go like 03, 04, or 05, I don't know if we're talking about like 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Can anyone intuit, without looking at a manual or anything, think of a way that, so if 3 represents the hour, what element can I type in that would give me the hour in 24-hour format? Oh, answered, disabled. All right, so.
If anybody, by the way, I've just made it available, so if anybody has the option now to unmute themselves and actually be able to speak, so if anyone wants to do that, please do so.
Totally, yeah, please do. But Eric was absolutely right? So it's 15. But what is 15, and why is that the replacement? Because of course, 1500 hours is the 24-hour representation of 3. So again, now you know without the manual, you have kind of like a reasonable sort of logical way of like figuring out what the rest of the time would be, right? Or how to format the time. And so we just went over kind of like the meat and potatoes of it, right? So again, 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06. Let's just start with that. So notice that I padded some of those with 0. And what that means is that it will literally pad those numbers with 0. So as you can see, there's like a 0, 2. If I just type in 2, I'll be startled because, oh, I'm sorry. If I just type in 3, I just get 2. Notice that it's not padded. And if I type in _3, actually underscore doesn't work for that. So yeah, forget about _3 for now. So yeah, if I don't pad it with 0, if I don't pad it, say the day, I mean, sorry, the hour with 0, I'll just get the hour unpadded. But if I say 03, I get it padded. Right. Let's get some room on my terminal. All right, so let's talk about the year, right? I'm sorry, the day. So likewise, I could say 02, which would give me a padded day. So if we were in single-digit days, it would pad it. But if I just said 2, it would give me the day. There's a additional kind of use for the day that gives me the day of the year. And so if I give it 3 digits of precision, so for example, if I think I say 002, that gives me the day of the year that it happens to be. Likewise, if I didn't want it padded to 3 digits, like let's say it was January 1st and I just said __2, that would give me the day unpadded. But of course, that would be, right now we happen to be into the 321th day and our 21st day of the year. Likewise, you could also print fractions of a second, right? So that works by printing it using a dot, and we could use 9, right? So 999, and that gives me the fraction of a second to the precision that I asked for by the number of 9s. There's a certain point of like diminishing. There's a certain like limit to that. I think it's I think it might be 9 9s. I don't remember that one. But. Well, so the way we can find out is if we so what this does is it truncates it to the nearest, to the nearest n before it gets to 0, right? So if it was like 0.120000 seconds, then it would just print 0.12. But if I use 0, that insists that it pads it completely to the fullest, right? And so we just so happens that we have a fractional second that's padded that way. Maybe by luck, let's see if we could trigger it to. Okay, I can't get lucky enough to find one that might be truncated, but trust me, that'll truncate it. Let's take a glance at. Let's see. I'm sure there's. Oh yeah, the year. I think I completely skipped the year. So another thing we could do is format the year as. So I think I've only demonstrated that we could do it as two-digit year. But of course, if I pad it, if I do the full year, like 2006, I'll get the full year. And this one actually isn't very forward thinking, right? Like Go now has the year 3000 problem, I guess, because, well, I guess it doesn't. I guess you just say two, I don't know how that works, but I'm just realizing that in the future, if Go is still in use in the year 3000, you'd still have to type 2006. Anyway. So I'm going to look back around now. And so my goal was to help you develop an intuition about how to format time without having to refer to the manual. And so what I'd like to ask is, how do we correctly format the current day, which is actually Thursday, November 11th, 2022, using Go's formatting primitives? And so I generally like, oh, try 0006 for the year. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I knew that doesn't work, but well, so that's another thing, is that time format will also happily kind of regurgitate anything else you type in there, right? So you know, type foo bar, and I'll just get foo bar out, right? Or if I type the year is 6, notice that 2006 still gets parsed, and so it gets a little bit tricky, right? So you can't just blindly pass text to the time format and expect it to come out the way you expect, right? I think generally you'd have to avoid trying to print any numbers that you want to come out literally. I don't think there's a way to kind of like escape. Try 3006. Well, that one actually kind of looks right, but that's whoa, hold on. So what's 3 again? Oh my gosh. Yeah, so we just got lucky, right? Today's the right day where we're 2, where it's 2 o'clock, and then we added a 0, and then we did 06 and got 22. But nice try, Dimitri. So yeah, let's circle back and see. Seriously, guys, without looking it up, let's see if we could format the time like November 17th, 2022. So simply as that. Of course, it's gonna. Oh, great. See, so now we just actually saw the results of like blindly passing numbers to time format. I actually kind of forgot that this is going to be passed through it, but this illustrates a point I was making before, which is that even though time format will output characters that don't match any like elements of time, it will eagerly replace anything that kind of looks like it, right? So I'm not sure if I'd recommend using time format to do anything other than printing time for that reason. Anyway, so this is kind of I'm nearing the end of the talk, and this is kind of like our homework, right? Like, so can somebody give me a format that we output that string? Not the second one, the first one, November 17th, 2022.
So there's 2 options, guys. You can either type or you can unmute yourselves and speak as well at the moment. Oh, we've had one come through, January the 2nd, 2006.
Exactly. And that is way better than shift time, right? We didn't have, and so here's my actual talk, right? So here's my actual. That's all. Developers learn to love and even miss APIs that actually cause them pain, right? Like I think it's sort of like Stockholm syndrome, right? There's a lot of people like, oh, I just love, I just miss like shift time, and I don't think they sometimes realize like how much of how difficult it is to use. Also, sometimes developers bring their idioms and patterns from other languages to Go, and that, in my experience, that's never good, right? It's particularly like Java, but even like C, right, where you come to Go and you kind of expect things like shift time to exist. And so again, this habit extends beyond like time formatting. But ultimately, my point is, whenever I have trouble with a feature or an API in Go, I've learned to ask, what better thinking am I missing? And every time I've looked into it, I've always found it, right? Like, and this is an example, right? I was a little bit frustrated with with time format, and the more I looked into it, the more I delved into it, the more intuitive and powerful I learned it was. And I feel like that's an approach you should take to almost everything in Go. It's never let me down. And that's all I have. On my last slide, I have my Twitter handle. I'd like to point out that my self-esteem is directly related to the number of Twitter followers I have. So please help me out by following me on Twitter. And yeah, that's all I have.
All right, brilliant. Well, on behalf of myself and everybody, Ayan, thank you so much. A great talk. That just so everyone is fully aware, this has been recorded. So if there is something that you felt you just wanted to go back and check, I will send everybody who's attended and stick it on both mine and Ayan's LinkedIn's tomorrow, a link to the recording, so everybody can access it and go back over anything they would like to. But no, Ayan, absolute legend. Thank you so much. And yeah. Tune in to the next one, guys. We'll be doing one around Christmas time.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you.